To our other top story, in just a few hours, President Trump literally, physically headed to the Supreme Court, where oral arguments will be held over his push to end birthright citizenship for children of illegal migrants and temporary visitors to the U.S.
This case is going to affect you and your children for generations, for sure. The U.S. Supreme Court, of course, as many of you guys know, has taken up the case that has been put forward by the Trump administration dealing with the issue of birthright citizenship. Back in January of last year, January of 2025, we saw the Trump administration come out and order for basically a reform of the issue surrounding birthright citizenship. This is an issue that, of course, is very important because it is really going to determine who, in fact, an American is and who they're not. We've had for quite a while now just this long-standing policy of as long as you happen to be born in this country, even if your parents are not under the jurisdiction of the United States of America, if they're not citizens, it doesn't really matter. They're still an American because they happen to be on the soil. Well, people have taken advantage of this for decades now. There's entire companies in China which will receive large amounts of money from buyers all around the world to help smuggle individuals into the United States just so that their children can give birth. Or can get born, rather, I should say. And because of all of that, the United States is just in an absolute mess. No other country on planet Earth does what we're tolerating at the moment, and this thing needs to be overhauled. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to some of these opening arguments, as you guys can see on the screen, it is not necessarily a promising venture, to say the least. It wouldn't surprise me if the Supreme Court, decides to just, if you will, knock down President Trump's executive order and for us to go back to square one. Let us take a look at some of what is going on right now. So as you guys can see, at the moment, the big breaking news essentially is that the SCOTUS Justice Amy Coney Barrett, she now appears skeptical of striking down birthright citizenship for illegals. She says, quote, "I can imagine it being messy, in some applications. But if you don't know who the parents are, what if you don't know?" Let's give a little bit of a listen in.
Okay, and let's talk about its applications. So, there are some, I can imagine it being messy in some applications. So what would you do with what the common law called foundlings? The thing about this is then you have to adjudicate if you're looking at parents, and if you're looking at parents' domicile, then you have to adjudicate both residence and intent to stay. What if you don't know who the parents are?
I think there are marginal cases. That one, I think, has the benefit of being addressed in 1401F, where it talks about.
Yeah. But what about the Constitution?
Under the Constitution, domicile is a constitutional standard in all kinds of other situations.
Well, and it's hard.
Diversity jurisdiction, personal jurisdiction. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and a personal jurisdiction. 1332, diversity jurisdiction. And the thing is, it has to be litigated because it turns on intent. And both the virtue of both jus soli and jus sanguinis, whichever one you pick, it's a bright line rule. How would it work? How would you adjudicate these cases? You're not going to know at the time of birth for some people whether they have the intent to stay or not, including U.S. citizens, by the way. What if you have someone who is living in Norway with their husband and family, but is still a U.S. citizen, comes home and has her child here and goes back? How do we know whether the child is a U.S. citizen because the parent didn't have an intent to stay?
I'd say make 2 points, one practical, one legal. The practical point is under the terms of this executive order, you don't have to, because the executive order turns on objectively verifiable things, which is immigration status. Are you lawfully present but temporarily present, or do you have an illegal status? So those kind of taking evidence, so to speak, under subjective intent wouldn't be done. And as to the constitutional point, obviously domicile is baked into a lot of constitutional and legal concepts, and there may be situations where facts are determined. But if you look at the guidance that all the agencies did after this court in Costa said the agency could go forward to issue guidance, the guidance provides, I think, very, very clear, objective, verifiable approaches to doing this. And so as a practical matter, I don't think it's presented by this executive order.
Thank you, General.
Justice Jackson?
There you have it. We essentially, in my mind, have one of two real possibilities in this country. One of two possibilities. One, we either do the right thing, which is to get rid of this system of birthright citizenship. I like how, for instance, Tim Pool put it, minus some of the foul language. We don't believe in foul language on this show. Quote, the debate on birthright citizenship is effing hilarious. Justices be like, yes, this will destroy the fabric of our nation, but it was written down, so whatever. That does seem to be the MO of many individuals, unfortunately, right now in the annals of power. As long as it's written down and there's some type of legal precedent for it, even though this will lead to the destruction of the nation, whatever. In other words, we have two paths that we have before us. Either A, we can go down and do the right thing, which is restrict migration in this particular context to saying, okay, just because you two happen to have a child upon American soil and none of your parents are American, they're not under the jurisprudence of, or not on the jurisdiction, rather, of the country. Well, that doesn't make you an American. You're just happen to be born physically on this landmass, and you're a citizen of the nation in which you came from, the citizen of the nation in which your parents fall underneath. That's the first thing we can do, right? That's the logical path. But if we don't, then essentially what we're saying to the entire world is, hey, all of you countries around the world, which none of you practice this policy, as long as you happen to have one of your citizens have a child upon our shores, they are an American, they're endued with all the constitutional rights and liberties, and they're now subject to the jurisdiction of the country and now can reap the benefits of entitlement programs and all other forms of benefit. It's absolutely nuts, because what is that telling the world? That's essentially telling the world that there's a bunch of free whiskey that everybody can just come and receive. It's absolutely nuts. No other country on planet Earth does this. We know that they don't do this because they have rationality. This is an absolutely insane move. If the court does go down this route, though, and they do decide to uphold essentially the current interpretation of birthright citizenship, the only way that I can think of that the nation can possibly be saved is for strong, powerful leaders to just absolutely militarize the entire border on the coasts, on the northern and southern border, to protect from mass amounts of entry, because this is going to be a major incentive to the entire world. Picture when the Supreme Court comes out, and if they say, you guys, as long as you have a child upon our shores and neither of your parents are American, then your child's an American. This is a advertisement to the entire planet. Show up here, we'll make sure and take care of your kid. Your kid will be an American. It's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And the scary thing is that you won't have a country, because now you'll have an incentive for millions and millions of people to come. Well, this also throws an interesting wrench in the political strategy, if you will, of the escalationists. Let's just escalate things until the system collapses. Well, this will collapse the system in some form or fashion. You could either have a scenario in A, when the Democrats inevitably get power again, they just open up the border, and now you have a ton of people who are coming here under these new incentives that are very explicitly enumerated. B, you have a situation in which, per se, if that was to happen, you now have the collapse of the country. You lose the heritage American. The heritage American becomes a thing of the past. All of the laws now are very much so rewritten or adapted to other cultures. Other cultures supplant the American culture, things along that nature. And long term, if you're really kind of just calculating the political ramifications of this, this could easily lead to some type of conflict in the future, where Americans are so displaced from their native lands that eventually force of arms is taken up. Now, many people, of course, they want accelerationism to take place, but I don't think they've thought this through. They haven't thought through the reality that their children or their children's children might be involved in some type of armed escalation or conflict that could get real ugly real quick, and unfortunately those people would perish. We have to figure out what is an American in this society. And I think one thing we can all agree on is, if your parents aren't American, just because you happen to be born on this continent in our land does not mean that you are an American. It's very clear in my mind. But unfortunately, common sense, I guess, has gone out with good taste. That just seems to be the MO right now of the Supreme Court. Yeah, it's quite bad, but ultimately, we'll see what they do. This is going to be several months in the making, and we'll have to see how they rule. Make sure and leave me your thoughts in the comments section below. Subscribe to the show if you're not already a part of it, and share this show with your friends. Give us a like, of course. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Coming up, I'm going to get some more of the reactions on this particular subject of birthright citizenship from some of the media heads, because some of the media heads have some quite interesting reactions that I think are worth analyzing. God bless you guys, and take care.